They called her post, the birdhouse, a babysitting gig for a lone woman in a forgotten tower. But when she spotted the enemy's true, terrifying plan in the shadows, no one would listen. By then, it was almost too late. The air in Watchtower Argus tasted of stale coffee, cold metal, and dust that had settled decades ago. At 0400 hours, Specialist Chloe Callahan, known to the few who spoke to her as Cal, began her 12-hour vigil. Below her, forward operating base Vigilance was a lonely island of steel and sand, a temporary scar on a landscape of rust-red, jagged mountains that clawed at a bruised purple sky. Corporal Jackson was a ghost shuffling out of the tower, his face a mask of exhaustion. He pushed a tablet across the console. "It's all yours, Cal, quiet night." He yawned, a crack in his weary armor. "Had some weird heat blooms around Grid 7 Delta. Looked kinda spider-like. Vanished before I could get a solid lock. Probably just a pack of jackals. Logged it as wildlife." Chloe nodded, her ice blue eyes already scanning the bank of monitors. "Copy that, Jax. Get some rack time." As the heavy steel door clanged shut, sealing her inside the rickety metal skeleton of the tower, she felt the familiar solitude settle over her. To most of the 300 souls on the base below, her job was a joke. The birdhouse, they called it. A safe, boring post for the quiet woman who preferred screens to people. They didn't know that for Chloe, this wasn't a watch, it was a hunt. She bypassed Jax's log and pulled up the raw thermal data herself. The heat signatures were faint, almost ethereal, and their movement was wrong. Jackals moved with a chaotic, start-stop energy. These signatures flowed, dispersed, and reappeared with a discipline that made the hair on her arms stand up. She pulled out a worn, leather-bound notebook, its pages filled with meticulous, hand-drawn maps of the surrounding terrain, annotated with wind patterns, potential dead zones for sensors, and lines of sight. This book was her real brain, a repository of observations that the official digital logs could never capture. She made a new entry, sketching the strange, spider-like pattern and noting the time. She didn't write wildlife. She wrote a single, underlined word, pattern. Below, the base slept. The mechanics, the cooks, the infantrymen dreaming of home. They felt safe, protected by high walls and automated perimeter alarms. They didn't know that the most critical system on FOB Vigilance wasn't a machine, but the unwavering focus of the girl in the tower. And she wasn't just watching. She was hunting. 2 hours crawled by, marked only by the hum of electronics and the distant cry of a desert fox. Chloe's focus never wavered. Her gaze swept methodically across the landscape, a rhythmic dance between the naked eye, the high-powered binoculars, and the ghostly green and black world of the thermal imager. Then, she saw it. In the exact sector Jax had flagged, a single figure detached itself from the shadow of a rock formation. It wasn't the clumsy stumble of a civilian or the erratic movement of an animal. This figure moved with a predatory grace, a fluid economy of motion that spoke of years of training. It flowed like water over the broken ground, using every scrap of cover, its heat signature deliberately minimized. "Base Ops, this is Argus," Chloe's voice was calm, cutting through the pre-dawn quiet of the radio channel. "I have a confirmed human contact, Grid 7 Delta, bearing 265. Single individual, exhibiting tactical movement." The reply came after a pause, thick with sleep and skepticism. It was Master Sergeant Evans. "Say again, Argus. You're sure it's not just a big cat? We've had reports." "Negative, Base Ops," Chloe stated, her tone unyielding. She zoomed the optics, capturing a grainy but undeniable image of a human silhouette carrying what looked like a long pack. "Subject is equipped for reconnaissance. I am tracking. Recommend deploying QRF." There was a sigh on the other end. "Roger, Argus. QRF is spinning up. Keep eyes on." Chloe felt the familiar sting of being placated. They were going through the motions. She continued to call out the target's position with chilling precision as he moved toward a pre-planned extraction point. He was too good, too aware of the tower's line-of-sight limitations. Just as the base's response team crested a nearby ridge, the figure melted into a deep ravine, a known dead zone for both thermal and ground surveillance. 12 minutes later, the QRF leader's voice crackled over the net. "Base Ops, Argus, this is Striker 1. Negative contact. We've got fresh tracks and an empty energy bar wrapper. Subject is long gone." Master Sergeant Evans's voice returned, devoid of any urgency. "Roger that, Striker. RTB. Argus, log the incident and stand down." Chloe's jaw tightened. "Log it and stand down." The dismissal was a physical blow. She watched the QRF's headlights retreat, a slow parade of failure. She turned back to her leather notebook, her pen pressing hard against the page. "They're not scouting us," she wrote. "They're grading us." The incident was buried in the Daily Intelligence Summary, a minor footnote among reports of supply convoys and atmospheric conditions. For 3 days, a tense silence fell over the valley. But Chloe knew it was the quiet of a predator holding its breath. She spent her shifts documenting more of the ghostly, fleeting signals, each one too brief to trigger an alert, but together forming a terrifying mosaic of systematic surveillance. On the 4th day, the tower door opened to reveal Captain Isabella Rossi. She was the base's new intelligence officer, a woman with a reputation as sharp as a shard of obsidian and eyes that missed nothing. She held a tablet with Chloe's report on it. "Specialist Callahan," Captain Rossi began, her voice crisp and direct, dispensing with pleasantries. "Your report on the professional recon is assertive. Master Sergeant Evans thinks you're seeing ghosts." Chloe met her gaze without flinching. "With respect, Captain, Evans is looking at single data points. I'm looking at the pattern." She gestured to her monitors. "They're testing us. Probing our sensor blind spots, timing our patrol changeovers, measuring the QRF's response time down to the second. The operative I saw wasn't just observing. He was a scout mapping a battlefield." Rossi's expression remained skeptical. "That's a heavy conclusion to draw from a single set of boot prints, Specialist." This was the moment. Chloe took a breath and slid her worn, leather notebook across the console. "This isn't about a single incident, ma'am." Rossi picked it up, her eyebrows raising slightly at the unofficial-looking artifact. She flipped through the pages. She saw not just logs, but complex diagrams. Timelines correlating the ghost signals with base activities like shift changes and mess hall hours. Hand-drawn infiltration routes that exploited subtle dips in the terrain. Analysis of the QRF's predictable path. It was the work of a dedicated, almost obsessive, analyst. Chloe pointed to a specific diagram. "He didn't run from the QRF, Captain. He led them to a specific point and vanished, confirming his knowledge of our surveillance dead zones. He was testing our playbook." She looked Rossi square in the eye. "This was a rehearsal, Captain. For the main performance." The air in the small tower grew thick with tension. Rossi was silent for a full minute, her sharp eyes flicking between the notebook and Chloe's face. The skepticism in her expression slowly dissolved, replaced by a chilling seriousness. She didn't offer praise or agreement. She simply keyed her radio. "Master Sergeant Evans, this is Captain Rossi. I want you to pull all sensor logs from all sectors for the past 96 hours. Cross-reference every subthreshold anomaly with Specialist Callahan's analog logs from Watchtower Argus. I'll be down to supervise personally." She closed the notebook and placed it gently on the console. "Don't lose this," she said. It was the highest form of praise Chloe could have imagined. She had found someone who would listen. The attack came 2 nights later, under a moonless sky. It wasn't the sporadic potshots of insurgents they were used to. It was a symphony of violence. The base alarms didn't just ring, they screamed from multiple directions at once. On Chloe's main monitor, the entire western perimeter lit up with hostile contacts. It looked like a Christmas tree from hell. The radio exploded into a cacophony of panicked voices, overlapping reports, and calls for medics. Down below, chaos reigned. But up in Watchtower Argus, in the heart of the storm, there was only cold, clear focus. Chloe Callahan became the base's central nervous system. Her fingers flew across the controls, her voice a calm, steady current in the raging river of radio traffic. Mortar section, this is Argus. Hostile mortar team setting up at Grid 9 Bravo, bearing 240. They're still assembling. You have 30 seconds. Fire for effect. Her mind was a supercomputer. Calculate trajectory, wind speed, flight time. Send it. Striker 1, you have an RPG team flanking you from the West Ridge, concealed behind the rockslide. Suppressing fire, now. Breathe, Cal, breathe. She was the conductor of a defensive symphony. She saw the attack unfold not as a series of isolated events, but as a single, coordinated entity. She anticipated its moves, calling out targets moments before they could open fire. She directed machine gun fire to cut off advancing squads, vectored the base's own mortars to silence the enemies, and warned defensive positions of threats they couldn't yet see. The base, which should have been overwhelmed, was holding. Because of her. The enemy knew it, too. In the midst of the fiercest fighting, as she was directing fire onto a team attempting to breach the southern fence, it happened. A tiny, brilliant point of light cut through the smoke and cordite haze. A demonic crimson star. It danced for a moment on the dusty, bullet-resistant glass of her viewport, then settled, perfectly still, right over her heart. The world went silent. The radio chatter, the explosions, the whine of bullets, it all faded into a dull roar. There was only the red dot, a searing promise of death. It was a message. We see you. The eye of the storm. And we are here to close it. A wave of pure, cold terror washed over her. Her body screamed at her to duck, to get down, to hide. But her mind, honed by countless hours of dispassionate observation, did something else. It analyzed. A laser sight. Steady. Which means the shooter is stationary. Which means he's exposed. She didn't move a muscle. She didn't even blink. While the red dot burned onto her chest, she took a deep, steadying breath. Her hand, moving with impossible calm, adjusted the high-powered optics, triangulating the laser's origin point. Viper 2, she said into her mic, her voice betraying not a tremor of fear. I have a hostile sniper. High ground. Bell tower of the ruined monastery. Range 1,100 meters. Elevation plus 15 degrees. Send it. A single, sharp crack echoed from a friendly sniper post. On her screen, she saw a puff of dust from the distant bell tower. The red dot vanished. Target eliminated, a calm voice reported on the net. Chloe blinked once, took another breath, and keyed her mic, copy that, Viper 2. Now, about that breach on the southern fence, the hunt was still on. As the first hints of dawn painted the bruised sky in shades of orange and gray, the last of the enemy fire subsided. The attack had been broken, the attackers melting back into the mountains, leaving their dead behind. The base was a wreck of smoking craters and spent shell casings, but it was standing. And inside, the casualties were miraculously light. Everyone knew why. In the post-engagement briefing, the air was thick with exhaustion and adrenaline. Colonel Marcus Thorne, the base commander, stood before his officers. His face was grim, but his eyes held a fire of respect. Last night, Thorne began, his voice resonating through the room, we were subjected to a professional, coordinated, and overwhelming attack. An attack we should not have survived. We did survive, and we won, because of one person. He turned his gaze upward, as if looking toward the tower itself. Specialist Callahan was not just our eyes and ears. She was our brain. She was the architect of this victory. A stunned silence fell over the room. Master Sergeant Evans stared at the floor, his face a mixture of shame and awe. Jax, who had been called back to duty, looked at the empty chair where Chloe would normally be with a newfound reverence. She was no longer Cal, the quiet girl in the birdhouse. She was Specialist Callahan, the woman who had stared down the enemy's best and hadn't flinched. Later, Captain Rossi found Chloe in the tower, meticulously cleaning her optics, her movements as precise as ever. She handed Chloe her leather notebook. Colonel Thorne has designated this official tactical intelligence. It's being digitized and sent to Central Command. The notebook, her private obsession, was now doctrine. That evening, Colonel Thorne came to the tower himself. He stood for a moment, looking out at the battered but secure perimeter. "You've changed how we see this place, Specialist. How we see our jobs." Chloe finished calibrating a monitor before turning to him. Her expression was calm, her ice blue eyes clear. "Sir," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I just didn't stop looking." In those simple words lay the entire truth of her character. It wasn't about glory or recognition. It was about the unwavering commitment to the duty no one else valued. The victory wasn't an event, it was the inevitable result of her relentless vigilance. In the months that followed, the story of the attack on FOB Vigilance became a legend. But more importantly, Specialist Callahan's methods became policy. The Argus methodology, a proactive, analytical approach to observation, became the new standard operating procedure for perimeter security across the entire theater of operations. Chloe found herself far from her lonely tower, standing before a class of fresh-faced intelligence analysts at a regional training center. She was a guest lecturer, her presence requested by the highest levels of command. She held up a standard-issue tablet, then tapped her own temple. "This equipment is remarkable," she told the students. "It can see in the dark, it can measure heat from a mile away. But it cannot think. It cannot understand intent. It can only show you what is. Your job," she said, her gaze sweeping across the room, "is to use that information to predict what will be." Her case study fundamentally altered the military's perception of non-combat roles. It triggered a wave of talent management reforms, initiatives designed to identify and cultivate expertise in every corner of the service, not just on the front lines. They started looking for more Chloes, hidden in plain sight in supply depots, motor pools, and comm centers. It was the beginning of a cultural shift, a rediscovery of the idea that professionalism and excellence were not tied to one's job title, but to one's mindset. A single person, in a forgotten post, had proven that the most powerful weapon in any arsenal is a dedicated human mind that refuses to be ignored. Her story is a testament to the quiet heroes who stand guard while others sleep, the ones who see the patterns everyone else misses. Their battlefield might be a screen, a spreadsheet, or a logbook, but their impact is just as real. Have you ever known someone like that in your own life? Someone whose quiet competence and dedication made all the difference. Share your stories in the comments below, but please, always comment with respect for everyone's experience. If you believe that every job has value and that unsung heroes deserve to be celebrated, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories of the forgotten heroes who changed the world.